Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome back on Ramadan TV. We are talking with the president of Sahuk, and that is Shaheen Essop. We have heard the good news that Hajj 22 is going to be possible for the global Muslim Ummah. We've been looking at all of the logistics regarding how it will impact on us as South Africans planning on Hajj 2022. Shaheen, welcome back to the program. You spoke about, obviously, protocols regarding applying to go on Hajj. Is this happening in other countries around the world as well? Do they too have to follow these type of protocols? And I should imagine it is in the benefit of the Hujjaj. Your rights and privileges, etc., is being protected by following these protocols.
Absolutely. You know, we've spoken to different Hajj missions from around the globe back in 2015 when we interacted with them at a Hajj symposium in Malaysia. Malaysia, for example, has a queuing process similar to ours, and they work on a date and time priority, as do we. The difference with them is that they've got a bank attached to this whole process of Tabung Hajis because they fall directly under the office of the Prime Minister in Malaysia. But, you know, Nigeria has a similar process, Indonesia, India has a similar process. We have to ask ourselves the question, when you talk about the protocols with regards to applying for Hajj, if we go back to prior to 2003, 2004, quotas were given to Hajj operators individually, and operators would then go and sell those particular spaces to people who have got money, you know, business people who are possibly going to be repeat pilgrims. And that would be at the cost of the first-time pilgrim who's waiting to go, whether it be a teacher, whether it be the lady making samosas or kusistas, whether it be the lady selling flowers, or the gentleman on the side of the road with his little kiosk and his umbrella, trying to make ends meet to go for Hajj. So we brought this whole process into account, or into being, to make sure that there's fairness, transparency, and equitability. Now, in everything that we do, because we have a scarcity of quota, because we have a process that we need to follow, and the demand is greater than the supply, there has to be a structure. And that structure is worked on a date and time priority. So anybody who applies, who fulfills the obligation of the application process, will then be put into the queue according to date and time priority. And we work through that queue based on the quota that is received from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The 2 years, 2020 and 2021, has obviously caused a tremendous amount of backlog in the system as a result of no Hajj taking place. And with that comes its own, you know, discrepancies or its own challenges in the process, from a point of view that, you know, people who would have been accredited are now sitting further back in the queue, unfortunately. We are subjected to the quota. We don't dictate the quota. The quota is dictated to by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Absolutely. And, you know, we have to abide by it and follow it in the best possible way that we can.
So, Shaheen, everyone's really, people who have planned and made the niyat of going on Hajj a couple of years ago and possibly looked at the years 2020 onwards, that was put to a root stop, obviously, by COVID. Post-COVID, people are now really scrambling. They're wanting to go. They've been locked down for far too long, and this is a wonderful opportunity to go on Hajj. And just when we thought it was easy to breathe now and go out and enjoy the world, so to speak, we now have this war playing out in the Ukraine. That is going to impact heavily on pricing, airline tickets, hotel, etc., etc. What do you know about that?
Well, let's first look at the situation as we see it right now in Saudi Arabia. Makkah, for example, has about 1,262 buildings that are normally operational for Hajj and Umrah. And during this Umrah session, you know, only 240 buildings are available for Umrah. And that makes it very, very difficult, you know, when you're choosing accommodation. And that is why package prices for Umrah during the month of Ramadan, coupled with other aspects relating to a new platform that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has instituted, makes it very expensive for people to go for Umrah. I mean, I've seen packages, for example, in the frontline hotels that vary from between 40,000 and, you know, up to 70, 80,000 per person. That's almost paying for Hajj prices for 2 weeks, which is rather ridiculous. What scares me is that when you look at the reduction in the number of people that are going to come for Hajj, yes, the hotels may be operational, but your services are probably going to increase in cost. Fuel costs, service costs in the kingdom, various other aspects relating to that. The war in Russia between the Ukraine and Russia is not helping the process much as well. As much as oil is produced in Saudi Arabia, they are subjected to pump pricing as well, and various other aspects relating to inflation that is coupled with all of those price increases.
We're also hearing that the Saudi authorities has warned people who perform Umrah without a permit will be penalized or possibly even put in prison. Why is that situation? How has that come about that people go on Umrah without a permit? Isn't it standard protocol that you get your permit first when you apply for your ticket and apply for a visa, that you get your permit at the same time? Or is this a ruling pertaining to Saudi nationals only?
More than likely, probably pertaining to the locals in Saudi Arabia, from a point of view that those would not need a visa to go for Hajj, for Umrah, but they would need the permit or the booking is known down on this app called Etma. If you don't do that, you're not going to be on any. Just on Friday, if we look at what transpired after Jumu'ah, the Mata actually reached the capacity on Friday. And that indicates to you that this is one of the major reasons why the authorities in the kingdom are pleading with people over there to make sure that they've got bookings rather than come here and perform or try to perform without. It doesn't make sense because it can be a cause for major disaster to happen. So safety, security, and well-being of the pilgrim, whether it's a local pilgrim, whether it be a foreign pilgrim coming from overseas to perform Umrah, is of the important to the Saudi authorities.
Shaheen, we spoke a little while ago, possibly 2 months ago, and at that point in time already people were going for Umrah, but there were obviously rules and regulations in place. You needed to book your time when you're going to visit the Rauda and when you're going to make tawaf, etc. Are those rules still in place? Because we see scores of people there now, and I'm wondering how the authorities are able to police that situation.
Yes, those rules are still in place, and in order to go and perform in the Rauda or go give your greeting to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you definitely need to book on that Itmarna. You need to book your appointment on there. When the people go into the Rauda, they are given minutes and ushered out of that particular area. Likewise, when you perform Tawaf Umrah, you're along the Mataf area because people in Ihram are allowed there, and that is also per booking. If you go upstairs, you're performing your Nafil Tawaf. I think with the scores of people during Ramadan, it's possibly needed as well. Prior to Ramadan, it wasn't needed. People could come in and out of the haram to perform salah and to perform nafil tawaf on the first and on the second floor. But when you look at the crowds now, they certainly are trying to implement it, but it doesn't seem to be working all that well. To give you an example, females, for example, who want to book in the Rauda, only get a booking in the next 2 months. So that becomes a major problem for females, wanting to enter because they've only got specific restricted times that they can go to the Rauda, whereas the men have the majority of the times during the day. So the authorities will have to revisit this and to look at different aspects relating to a much more equitable process that is going to help to try and solve that, inshallah.
What more do we need to know if, for example, we go for Umrah in the next few weeks, hopefully in the last 10 days of Ramadan? If we're fortunate enough to be able to make that trip, what ought we be aware of on embarking on this Mubarak trip?
I think the most important thing that you need to know is about the booking process in Itmarna Wakal, where you need to register your vaccination. Be that they've indicated that no vaccinations are required. When in the kingdom and you need to move around between malls or shops and go do some buying for your personal needs, you still need to reflect whether you have been fully vaccinated or not. And that then becomes a problem, and people have been surprised by either being stopped from entering into stores or into malls, etc., with regards to that. The second most important thing is that food to come by in Medina and in the Makkah is not so bad. In Medina, because of the closure of many of the restaurants, many of the shops, a very difficult process to find. So there has been a list that one of the brothers from Mina has basically put on social media, and that list is very beneficial to people who want to access, food for iftar if they don't have iftar included in their accommodation booking, and for suhoor as well. But these are the challenges at the stages that we find ourselves, that people are coming back and telling us about. A few weeks ago, we had two members of attend a conference there, and they indicated that Medina was actually almost like a ghost town. Hotels have been closed, restaurants have been closed, stores have been closed, so it was very, very difficult, to find any services. The advent of, the removal of foreigners from the country has also made it difficult from a clean point of view. So people need to all know that if you're booking with somebody, you're booking 10 days, are you booking in a hotel that's fully serviced, or are you booking in a building where you're going to need to service the building yourself or service your room yourself? So these are the aspects you need to discuss with your operator in order to make sure that you have an enjoyable trip when you go across.
Very quickly, my final question, Shaheen. Do you think, we know that Alhamdulillah Hajj is about 2.5, 3 months away. Do you think that the authorities will be able to manage the crowds under these current conditions, or will they have to re-look at the conditions in the way the people are going to be undertaking their Hajj? Because of these applications you're talking about on the cell phones, booking time at the road, etc., that doesn't sound like it's going to be feasible at all.
Well, I don't think it can be feasible for the Hajj process, because if you're having 1 million people coming in at different times, you're probably not going to be able to, facilitate it in that way. But we'll have to wait and see what they come through with in that particular regard. I think that the reduction in numbers down to 1 million is going to make it easier for them in the kingdom to manage the process, and especially the movement of the people from that particular point of view. They need to take away from 2020 the internal Hajj, and 2020 and 21, and extrapolate that into the numbers they have currently. And I think that is what the delay was, and probably why we only see 1 million people versus 2.5 or 2.8 million people that have made Hajj in the past. So from that point of view alone, and looking at the cramped space at Mina, I think they're doing the right thing. They're going to see how it works, and inshallah, this is going to be short term. I don't think that it will be something that we can look forward to in the ensuing year. I do believe that in the ensuing years, we'll probably see a bigger increase in the numbers.
Inshallah. It was wonderful talking to you. Thank you indeed for all of that information. And we do hope and pray that whoever does embark on these two journeys, Umrah and Hajj, that it will be a very, very easy and Mubarak-filled journey. Shaheen, Essop from Sahuk, shukran once again. And from everyone here at Ramadan TV, thank you for watching. Till the next time, as always, Assalamu alaikum and Khuda Hafiz.